day everyone, I am Cristel A. Angeles from BSN1A, Team MakaDiyos, NSTP class from the home of world-class nurses, San Pablo Colleges. At this moment, we are going to present the definition, aspect, and scope of Republic Act 9262 Act of 2004, or known as Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children. As a group, we are going to present the sections included at this act. We are hoping that at the end of this presentation, you will learn a lot from us. Now, let us start the presentation proper.
Section 1 of Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children, Act of 2004, an act defining violence against women and their children, providing for protective measures for victims, prescribing penalties, therefore, and other purposes. The RA 9262 is classify violence against women and children as a public crime, a law that seeks to address the prevalence of violence against women and children, abuse in women and children by their partners, like their live-in partner, ex-live-in partner, husband, ex-husband, boyfriend, dating partner, and the like. Also, women can be liable under this act. These are lesbian partners, girlfriend, or former partners of the victim with whom she has or had sexual or dating relationships. Based on Section 3, there are 4 acts punished by RA 9262, such as physical, sexual, psychological violence, and economic abuse. These are the persons who are protected under RA 9262: a woman, wife, former wife, or against women with whom the person has or had dating relationships, or asexual, or with whom he has a common child. Legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode. Ang paglabag sa bawsi ay maaaring magresulta ng pagkakakulong na hindi bababa sa 1 buwan at 1 araw, at hindi hihigit sa 12 taon kung ang paglabag ay ginawa sa harapan ng anak na babae. Ang pinakamahabang panahon na ipapataw ng hukom bilang parusa sa nagkasala. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared that the state values the dignity of women and children and guarantees full respect for human rights. The state also recognizes the need to protect the family and its members, particularly women and children, from violence and threats to their personal safety and security. The law recognizes the unequal relations of a man and a woman, an abusive relationship where it usually the woman who is disadvantaged. Thus, the RA 9262 protects the woman and her children. There is protection order that the victims or abused can file under this are barangay protection order, temporary protection order, and permanent protection order. Toward this end, the state shall exert efforts to address violence committed against women and children, in keeping with the fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution and the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Convention on the Rights of the Child, and other international human rights instruments of which the Philippines is a party.
Okay, let's move on to this part of Republic Act 9262, Section 3, which is the definition of terms. First, let's talk about what is violence against women and their children. Violence against women and their children refers to any act or behavior of an individual or by a person that threatens or actually harm or injured, especially women, or any acts against woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, or that woman's child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode, na nagre-result maging sa physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering ng isang tao, lalo na yung sa babae at dun sa bata, or economic abuse, including threats of such acts, battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. To make it short, it means kahit anong gawain na nakomit ng isang tao against women and their children na naaabuso ang kanilang karapatan bilang tao within or outside the family residence by force. This includes physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, and economic abuse. Physical violence, it refers to acts that include bodily or physical harm. Ito yung mga kasama dito yung panggugulpe, yan, paninipa, o panunutok ng baril o kahit anong bagay na nakakasakit, resulting bruises or pasa. Ganun din yung pag-swell na makikita natin sa parte ng katawan na naabuso ng isang violator. Sexual violence refers to an act which is sexual in nature committed against a woman or her child. It includes rape, sexual harassment, acts of lasciviousness, treating a woman or her child as a sex object, making demeaning and sexually suggestive remarks, physically attacking the sexual parts of the victim's body, forcing her or him to watch obscene publications and indecent shows, or forcing the woman or her child to do indecent acts or make films thereof, forcing the wife and mistress or lover to live in the conjugal home or sleep together in the same room with the abuser. Acts, it includes also acts or attempting to cause the victim to engage in any sexual activity by force, threat of force, physical or other harm, or threat of physical or other harm, or coercion. And last, it includes prostituting the woman or her child. So, sabi dito, itong part na to, sexual violence, ito yung sexual abuse ng violator. It includes panggagahasa o pamimilit dun sa isang tao, lalo sa babae, sa anak nito na manood ng X-rated na pelikula, at kasama din dito yung pambubugaw ng violator sa asawa niya o dun sa babae at sa anak nito. Psychological violence refers to acts or omissions causing or likely to cause mental or emotional suffering of the victim, such as, but not limited to, intimidation, harassment, stalking, damage to property, public ridicule or humiliation, repeated verbal abuse, and mental infidelity. So, ito yung, including dito yung pamamahiya doon sa tao, doon sa victim, and also, paninira ng gamit nito. And, ito yung mga gawain na mapaverbal or physical na naaabuso yung tao na nakaka-apekto sa kanyang pag-iisip. Minsan nagkakos ito ng trauma. Ayan. And, including dito ang pagkakait sa mga anak. Ayan, sa anak ng babae. Nung violator or unwanted deprivation of the right to custody or visitation of common children. Okay, last, under the violation against women and their children, which is economic abuse. It refers to acts that make or attempt to make a woman financially dependent, which includes withdrawal or financial support or preventing the victim from engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity. except in cases wherein the other partner objects on valid, serious and moral grounds as defined in Article 73 of the Family Code. Deprivation or threat of deprivation of financial resources, and the right to the use and enjoyment of the conjugal community or property owned in common, destroying household property, and controlling the victim's own money or properties, or solely controlling the conjugal money or properties of the victim. So, under ng economic abuse ay ang hindi pagbibigay ng suporta ng violator financially. At also, pagbigyan nito sa pagtatrabaho ng babae at pagkuha o pagkontrol ng kita ng babae at paninira ng gamit sa pamamahay nito. Battery, it refers to the act of causing bodily injury or physical harm to a woman or her child na nagre-result sa physical, psychological, or emotional na nagdudulot ng stress and also worse, trauma. Battered women syndrome, it refers to a scientifically defined pattern of psychological and behavioral symptoms found in women living in battering relationships as a result of cumulative abuse. Dito naman, kinikilala ng Republic Act 9262 ang matinding effect ng abuse, lalo na sa women, against women. Lalo na kung matagal na panahon na nilang na-experience, yan, yung pang-abusong yan. May mga case na kung saan ay dahil dun sa pagbibigil ng babae or matinding kinikimkim or matinding galit ng babae na tinitimpi niya ng matagal, humahantong ito sa worst ay pagpatay dun sa violator or karelasyon niya. Dahil ito na lamang yung naiisip niyang paraan o yung nakikita niyang paraan para makawala dun sa abuse. And dun sa situation na yon, maaaring itong battered women syndrome ay maaaring niyang gamitin sa korte para mapawalang bisa yung or mapawalang sala yung ginawa ng babae. I mean, parang ano siya, self-defense, ganun. Kailangan mo nang mapatunayan na yung victim ay may battered woman syndrome through psychologist or psychiatrist para mapawalang sala talaga sa korte yung nagawa niyang krimen as self-defense. Stalking refers to an act committed by a person who knowingly and without lawful justification follows the woman or her child, or places the woman or her child under surveillance directly or indirectly. Dito naman ay ito yung mga act intentionally or sinasadya. Example nito ay pagsasend sa victim ng cards or any gifts. Pagsunod dito are pagkuha ng litrato nito ng hindi kinukuha or without taking her consent o wala siyang knowledge about it sa ginagawa ng violator. Or ito din ay yung stalking ay yung pagmamonitor doon sa victim nang walang kalam-alam ang victim. Stalking also includes disclosing the victim's personal information na nakukuha ng stalker sa mga daily activities nito or sa mga interest na nakikita ng stalker dun sa victim through social medias or anything, kahit sa mga kung sa trabaho, mga pagtatanong-tanong ng stalker nang walang kaalam-alam yung victim. Also, ang stalking ay isa ding harassment. Dating relationship, it refers to a situation wherein the parties live as a husband and wife without the benefit of marriage or are romantically involved over time and on a continuing basis during the course of the relationship. Ito yung mga sa live-in partners. Ayan na, hindi pa sila kasal. Ayan. Pero hindi dito include yung casual acquaintance or ordinary socialization between two individuals in a business. Ayan. dating relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, dating. Sexual relations, a single sexual act that may or may not result in the birth of a common offspring. Or ito yung gawain na maaaring magresulta or hindi magresulta sa pagkakaroon ng anak. Safe place or shelter. It refers to any home or institution maintained or managed by Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD or by any other agency or voluntary organization accredited by the DSWD for the purposes of this act or any other suitable place the resident of which is willing temporarily to receive the victim. Ito naman, sabi dito, itong safe place or shelter, ito yung pansamantalang magiging tirahan ng victim or kung saan ay doon siya mapapangalagaan at mapoprotektahan laban din sa abuser. Last one to define here in Section 3 of Republic Act number 9262 is children, which refers to those below 18 years of age or minors or older but incapable of taking care of themselves, as defined under Republic Act number 7610. As used in this act, it includes the biological children of the victim and other children under her care. So, sa children, ito yung tinutukoy dito ay yung mga bata under care ng magulang. Yan. Na kumbaga responsibility pa sila ng magulang. Ayan. Wala pa silang kakayahang alagaan ng kanilang sarili at nakadepende pa sila sa mga magulang nila.
For section number 4, which is construction, this act simply constructed para mag-promote ng protection and safety for woman or mother and sa anak niya who have been victims of violence. Section number 5, which is the acts of violence against women and their children. In this section, we will know and tackle yung mga examples ng gawain na we can say that someone is violating the rights of the woman and her child. One of these are causing physical harm to woman or her child. As simple as we read it, ito nga yung mga pananakit sa babae at sa anak nito. It can either be slapping, punching, or pananakal, or other term ng pananakit physically sa babae at sa anak nito. Others are threatening to cause the woman or her child physical harm and attempting to cause the woman or her child a physical harm. These two, magkahiwalay siya pero pinagsama ko na because it has the same path. Threatening and attempting. In some situation, like yung the ways they will say sa babae na sasaktan kita, bubugbugan kita, that's something like a threat. And attempt is like parang on point ka na pero hindi mo paggagawin. Parang may control pa din. But in some point, yun yung mga nagtitrigger kung bakit nagpa-fight back yung babae or her child, diba? Next one is placing the woman or her child in fear of imminent physical harm. When we say imminent physical harm, it means about to happen. So, mangyayari pa lang, pero takot na sila. So, in some situation, ito yung mga times na they are traumatized because may nangyari ng ganon. Siguro, ilang attempt na merong physical harm. That's why, they're already afraid dun sa mangyayaring physical abuse. Or in some situations, it can also be chaotic. Kunwari, nagkakagulo na, ganan-ganan. And dun sa child, parang instinct niya na may physical harm na mangyayari. Kaya yun, natatakot na siya. Another naman is attempting to compel or compelling the woman or her child to engage in conduct which the woman and her child has the right to. Under nito are restricting their freedom, pag-intimidate, and yung mga pagtitreat or pagbabawal gumamit ng social media, other digital gadgets. Another things are yung pagde-deprive ng financial support and sa mga legal rights. Like, for example, yung babae or her child has occupation and other professions, pinagbabawalan sila gawin yon or any activities outside their home. The next one is inflicting or threatening to inflict physical harm on oneself. As funny as I might say it, ito yung we can term as yung mga sad boy moments. Ito yung mga pangmamanipulate sa babae at sa anak nito, such as getting their sympathy, yung magpapakamatay sa harap nila, or telling them na sige, pag iniwan nyo ako, magpapakamatay ako, maglalaslas sa harap nila, which is what we can see as a manipulation nga, diba? And the next one is causing or attempting to cause the woman or her child to engage in any sexual activity. Let us be reminded na even if two people are in marriage, consent is still a must, lalo na in doing sexual activities. Kasi once na wala tong consent and you do it forcefully, we can treat it as a rape. And ayun nga, nasa under siya ng violence against woman. And especially if ginawa to sa bata, it's rape. Whether he is wearing a pajamas or anything, clothes doesn't matter. Rape is rape. To be followed by engaging in purposeful knowing or reckless conduct personal or through another. Example nga nito ay yung pag-stalk, pagbabantay sa labas ng bahay, pagsira ng mga properties that is owned by the woman and her child, pagtatrespass, and engaging sa any form of harassment. Lastly, causing mental or emotional anguish, public ridicule, or humiliation. As simply as pamamahiya in public. Yung, kunwari, may sisiraan siya in public, ganun. And anything na humiliation, yung alam niyang parang threat dun sa tao, sa babae, na alam niyang she would feel very embarrassed.
In Section 6, Penalties. The crime of violence against women and their children under Section 5 hereof shall be punished according to the following rules. Acts falling under Section 5, constituting attempt frustrated, or parricide, or murder, or homicide, shall be punished in accordance with the provision of the Revised Penal Code. Acts falling Section 5 shall be punished by arresto mayor. Acts falling Section 5 shall be punished by prison correctional. If this demonstration brought about mutilation, it will be culpable as per the Revised Penal Code. Those comprising serious physical injuries will have punishment in jail civic chairman. Those establishing less serious physical injuries will rebuff by jail remedial, and those comprising slight physical injuries will be rebuffed by arrested city hall leader. And second slide. In the event that demonstration are submitted while the lady or a kid is pregnant or submitted within the sight of her kid, the punishment to be applied will be the most extreme time of the punishment endorsed in the segment. Notwithstanding detainment, the culprit will pay a fine in the measure of at least 100,000 pesos, yet not multiple 100,000 pesos, and should go through required mental advising or mental treatment and will report consistence to the court. Section 7, Venue. The regional trial court designated as the family court shall have original and exclusive jurisdiction over cases of violence against women and their children under this law. In the absence of such court in the place where the offenses was committed, the case shall be filed in the regional trial court where the crime or any of its element was committed at the option of the compliant. To make a short explanation about the venue, kumbaga, ang Section 7 ay naka-enclose lang yung venue kung saan naglilitis ng ganong kaso about women and children, which is sa RTC or family court.
Section 8 or protection orders. A protection order is an issued under this act for the purpose of preventing further acts of violence against a woman and her child specified in the Section 5 of this act and granting other necessary relief. So the provisions of the protection order shall be enforced by law enforcement agencies like the Barangay Protection Order or the BPO, Temporary Protection Order or the TPO, and also the Permanent Protection Order or the PPO. So, the protection order that may be issued under this act shall include any, some, or all of the following reliefs. There are 11 following reliefs that you can read. So, a protection order rather, it is also called a restraining order or domestic violence interdict. It is a court order that tells an abuser to stop the abuse and sets certain conditions preventing the abuser from harassing or abusing the victim again. So the reliefs granted under the protection order serve the purpose of safeguarding the victim from further harm, minimizing any disruption in the victim's daily life, and it is facilitating the opportunity and ability of the victim to independently regain control over her life. Section 26 or the battered woman syndrome as a defense. So, as you can read, victim survivors who are found by the courts to be suffering from battered woman syndrome do not incur any criminal and civil liability, notwithstanding the absence of any elements for justifying circumstances of self-defense under the revised penal code. So, in the determination of the state of mind of the woman who was suffering from the battered woman syndrome at the time of commission of the crime, the courts shall be assisted by expert psychiatrists or psychologists. So, in January 15, 2004, the Philippine Supreme Court for the first time elucidated on the concept of BWS. In this case, a woman shot her husband because her husband was beating her. She was not only defending herself but also her baby. Since she was 8 months pregnant. In this case, the woman was raising the defense of BWS. Thus, the Supreme Court defined a battered woman as a woman who is repeatedly subjected to any forceful physical or psychological behavior by a man in order to coerce her to do something he wants her to do without concerns for her rights.
I'm here to discuss the Section 27 and Section 35 of the Republic Act 9262, or also known as Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004. If the husband stated an excuse that he was drunk or he was influenced under drug when he hit his daughter or his wife, based on Section 27, he can't defend himself because still violate the
Republic Act 9262, and in Section 27, it stated that prohibited defense being under the influence of alcohol, any illicit drug, or any other mind-altering substances shall not be a defense under this act.
Section 40. The DSWD and LGUs shall provide the victims temporary shelters, provide counseling, psychosocial services, and recovery rehabilitation programs and livelihood assistance. The Section 40 of RA 9262 explains the role of Department of Social Welfare and Development or the DSWD as well as the local government unit in the rehabilitation and assistance of victims of violence, especially women and children. It shows the role of DSWD and LGU in providing temporary shelters for victims and conduct counseling for them. Section 41. The DSWD shall provide rehabilitative counseling and treatment to perpetrators towards learning constructive ways of coping with anger and emotional outbursts and reforming their ways. When necessary, the offender shall be ordered by the court to submit to psychiatric treatment or confinement. Like the Section 40 of this Act, Section 41 emphasizes what type of counseling will be given to the victims, and this is rehabilitative, wherein it is a specific practice of counseling within the discipline. Its main focus is coping with anger and emotional outbursts of victims that can help them to reform their ways. It is said that if there is a need for psychiatric treatment or confinement, the DSWD shall have the power to operate it as ordered by the court.
Section 35, Rights of Victims. In addition to their rights under existing laws, victims of violence against women and their children shall have the following rights: to be treated with respect and dignity, to avail of legal assistance from the POW of the Department of Justice, DOJ, or any public legal assistance office, to be entitled to support services from the DSWD and LGUs, to be entitled to all legal remedies and support as provided for under the Family Code, and to be informed of the rights and services available to them, including their right to apply for a protection order. It is important to know the rights of the victims for them to be encouraged to file a case against someone who violate their rights, and if they are scared to file a case, there are some public legal offices who can help and support them from filing the case and throughout all the process.
Republic Act 1960, Section 45 and 46. Section 45, Funding. The amount necessary to implement the provisions of this Act shall be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act or GAA. The Gender and Development or GAD budget of the mandated agencies and LGUs shall be used to implement services for victims of violence against women and their children. The law recognizes the unequal relationships that exist between a man and a woman. A violent relationship in which the woman is generally the victim, disadvantaged. As a result, the law safeguards the lady and her children. The victim, a minor, legitimate or illegitimate, and a person aged 18 and up who is unable to make decisions for herself or himself due to an emotional, physical, or mental ailment, can all make full use of the law. Any child in the care of a woman is also legally and included in funding. Administrations agencies such as the city government, barangays, police, social workers, and the general public must work together. Encourage. Gender and Development or GAD and the local government budget will provide funding for the law's implementation. Section 46. Implementing rules and regulations. Within 6 months from the approval of the Act, the DOJ, the NCRFW, the DSWD, the DILG, the DOH, and the PNP, and the 3 representatives from NGOs to be identified by the NCRFW shall promulgate the implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, of this act. A proposed action plan has been developed to aid in the execution of RA 9262. It focuses on budgeting, facilities, and awareness, as well as the formation of committees dedicated to providing anti-violence against women and children, or VAWC, services and ordinances for their implementation. The respondents suggested conducting trainings for seminars, providing facilities, coordinating and obtaining assistance from other agencies, providing funds, re-examining the effects of related laws on the implementation of RA 9262, improving the implementation of this by the officials, reactivating the Barangay Council for the Protection of Children, BCPC, and uniting the people to maintain peace and order.
With the number of cases regarding the violence in women and children was rampant, the Republic Act 9262 was legislated. These people made this act possible. Jose de Venecia Jr., the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Franklin Drilon, the President of the Senate, Roberto P. Nazareno, Secretary General, House of Representatives, Oscar G. Yabes, the Secretary of the Senate. More importantly, without this person's approval, it would not take effect at all. On March 8, 2004, the current president of that time, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, approved the Republic Act 9262, or what is known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children. The act shall take effect 15 days from the act being ultimately and completely published in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. Republic Act 9262 is defined as anti-violence against women and their children and providing the protective measures for victims, penalties, and other purposes. Every single day, some women and children are being abused, and we never know how they are violated. It may be physical, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse. With those forms of violation and abuse, the Republic Act 9262 has implemented penalties for the abusers of 10 to 20 years imprisonment. In every form of violence, the abused may have felt that one cannot practice her rights as a woman and as a child. And this Republic Act ensures that aside from the human rights, there shall be additional rights for the abused. On March 8, 2004, this act was approved by the former President, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Republic Act 9262, or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children, ensures that every battered woman and their children shall still have the right to be served justice and meet the services and programs needed to recover from the trauma they have experienced. No one shall be left behind, and every woman and their children should feel loved by their partners and vice versa. Violence can be a crime, and therefore, as a Filipino citizen, let us stop the violence. No is no, and let us stop any forms of violence.